much entirely to it. It's going to be a pretty solid August in terms of those auto sales. Now,
it ended up being a lot of very solid auto sales months. The rescue of the American auto industry, despite its critics at the time, you know who I'm talking about, that rescue of the American auto industry worked, and it worked like gangbusters. There was also the tripling in size of America's national service programs, as you heard Chris describe there, and a fundamental reform of this country's broken but now fixed student loan system. There was also the small matter of pulling the country back from the brink of a second Great Depression.
Less than a month in office, and the president made dramatic history with a simple stroke of the pen. Signing into law America's largest economic recovery package ever.
The stimulus bill that was signed into law by President Obama, for the record, was the single largest tax cut ever, the largest investment in clean energy ever, the single largest investment in education ever, and it was the largest investment in our nation's infrastructure, things like roads and bridges, since the Eisenhower administration. And things were just getting started.
It's as close to universal health care as America will likely ever come, and it will improve the health care of millions of Americans. In size and scope, it's being compared to Medicare and Social Security, and tomorrow, health care reform will be signed into law by the president.
After decades and decades of trying and failing, President Obama and the Democrats achieved what was long thought to be the unachievable: real, comprehensive health reform in a country that had no health system whatsoever. That was March 2010. This was 4 months later.
Almost 2 years now after the entire banking system almost collapsed, President Obama signed the financial reform bill into law.
Presidential pen. The new financial regulatory reform law is aimed at curbing the excesses on Wall Street while protecting average Americans on Main Street.
All told, these reforms represent the strongest consumer financial protections in history.
After seeing through the bailout of a financial a collapse that brought this country to its knees, a Wall Street conflagration that inched us toward the precipice of a second Great Depression, the president then pushed through the most significant set of financial reforms. And then there was more to do.
We now know who will be the next Supreme Court justice. The U.S. Senate today confirmed Judge Sonia Sotomayor as the first Hispanic justice on the Supreme Court, only the third female justice in all of U.S. history.
History was made in this country today when the Senate confirmed Elena Kagan to the U.S. Supreme Court. Once she's sworn in this weekend, she'll become the current court's third woman member and the fourth ever named.
President Obama is signing the New START Treaty today, one of his key foreign policy goals. It cuts U.S. and Russian nuclear arsenals by 1/3. More than 9 years after the September 11th attacks, first responders who were sickened at Ground Zero will have new federal health benefits. President Obama signed the 9/11 health bill on Sunday.
Today, the president also put pen to paper, signing the repeal of the ban on gays in the military.
Your country needs you, your country wants you, and we will be honored to welcome you into the ranks of the finest military the world has ever known.
The repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the 9/11 first responders bill that had been inexplicably blocked in Washington for way too long, a nuclear arms treaty with Russia, 2 women appointed to the United States Supreme Court, including the first Hispanic Supreme Court justice in this nation's history. All of that was all accomplished in the first 2 years of his presidency. And then came the 2010 midterms, and the House went to the Republicans, and they pledged to oppose everything the president did. That loggerheads between the House Republicans and the White House brought us to crises like the debt ceiling fight, where congressional Republicans refused to raise the debt ceiling even though they had voted multiple times to do so under Republican presidents. They refused to do it under this president, and they thereby brought about the almost unthinkable downgrading of the country's credit rating. But even opposition that intractable cannot stop a presidency in its tracks. Colin Powell's endorsement of President Obama a little more than a week ago put part of this legacy of this presidency, I think, as succinctly as it can possibly get.
I also saw the president get us out of one war, start to get us out of a second war, and did not get us into any new wars.
President Obama did get all American combat troops out of Iraq by the end of 2011, as he promised. He sent Navy SEALs into Pakistan to kill Osama bin Laden, as promised. On the one-year anniversary of killing Osama bin Laden, the president took a surprise trip to Afghanistan to sign an agreement to get U.S. troops out of that country on the timetable that he promised, once and for all. In support of the uprising in Libya against the dictator Muammar Gaddafi, President Obama did not make it an American war despite pressure from the right to do so. Instead, he dispatched American resources and troops in support of a multilateral, multi-country effort which did ultimately overthrow that dictatorship without ever putting American boots on the ground. He escalated economic sanctions against Iran to a degree never seen before. He came out in favor of marriage equality for same-sex couples. He extended employment benefits to same-sex partners of federal employees. And in the face of a Republican Congress that turned against its own immigration proposals because he was in favor of them too, President Obama took executive action to stop the deportation of kids who were here without papers through no fault of their own, kids who were successfully pursuing an education or career in the U.S. military. And, oh, by the way, the stock market doubled, unemployment is below 8%, we've had 32 straight months of private sector job growth, and he quit smoking.
That's the most persistent one I've ever seen. Nice.
Now, where were we? It is 4 long, tough years after he was elected. And we are now on the eve, literally, of another national decision about the American presidency. The case against this president from the Republican side, if you take only the serious criticism, is essentially that things could be better. That yes, there's been a recovery, but it's not a good enough recovery. Yes, there's been economic progress, but it's not good enough progress. That Republican economic proposals, they're saying that Republican economic proposals this year, in particular, won't do what they did during the George W. Bush years. The argument from the right this time is that if we try those Republican economic proposals from the Bush years again, this time they will work better. Now, honestly, I think that is what the case against President Obama boils down to. And that's not always what the case against the president sounds like. But that is what it boils down to, and I believe that is true because the rest of the case against him that you hear so much about, if you're honest about it, is stuff that this president hasn't actually done. I mean, they say that he has raised taxes, and he has not raised taxes. They say that he's going to take away your guns, or he has taken away your guns, when this president hasn't done anything to your guns except let you take them into national parks now. They say that he has doubled the deficit. He's actually brought the deficit down by hundreds of millions of dollars since he took office. You know, when the Republicans picked as their nominee this guy this year, a guy whose campaign book was called No Apology, specifically because this guy invented the idea of an American apology tour for President Obama that he wanted to run against, even though President Obama never actually apologized for America or took an apology tour. When they picked Mitt Romney, we should have known that this was going to be a campaign that was going to aim its pointiest political attacks against things that President Obama never actually did. And so whether it is the deficit attack, or the guns attack, or the phony religious freedom attack, or the phony apology tour attack, we have ended up with a campaign that has not much been about assessing the real things that really have happened these past 4 years, whether you agree with them or not. And a lot has happened these past 4 years. And it's worthy of debate. It's at least worthy of appreciating on the eve of this big decision that we are about to make tomorrow. 4 years after what you're looking at right here, 4 years after that historic night, when the nation elected our first African-American